And what we see this is as this broader problem of rogue judges erecting essentially a judicial blockade, motivated both by Democrats and, in the case of trade, the typical rhino free trade Wall Street, ship the jobs offshore, open the borders. We see this as a judicial blockade. It's consistent with the other things they've done to try to stop the deportation of violent felons and to basically slow us down on all sorts of different fronts. And they will pay the price for this at the ballot box. Every time something like this happens, the Democrats reveal themselves as against the very agenda President Trump ran on that propelled him to a landslide election. And just from a detail that you should put on your stories, I mean, how did this suit come about? The court is not supposed to micromanage how the president of this United States is supposed to be able to get people to stop dying from fentanyl. And the court didn't even note the fact that the fentanyl tariffs have been actually quite successful. Who is this guy? Tell me who you are, sir.
I'm Andrew Feinberg. I work for The Independent. Sir.
Okay, so that is such a biased question. That is not a journalist question. So obviously you just heard the news. They've stayed the order of the court, and we will go obviously to the appeals court and if necessary up the chain from there. Let me give you some context. The broad context for this administration is that President Trump ran, among other things, on stopping Communist China from poisoning Americans with fentanyl. We've lost over 1 million souls to fentanyl over the last years. It's not just the fentanyl itself that kills, it's that they use, the Mexican cartels blend the fentanyl in to all the hard drugs, the methamphetamine, the heroin, the ecstasy, all that. But also, and if you're anybody out there watching this who's buying any prescription drugs online, it's creeped into things like Valium and Xanax as well. It's a carnage. And it is an emergency. And President Trump promised to stop that, and the courts have intervened now on that. So that's one piece of what happened yesterday. The second piece is the reciprocal tariffs. President Trump promised on the campaign trail that he would end the unfair trade practices of foreign nations. I think the press has now agreed with this administration that the rest of the world charges higher tariffs and has higher non-tariff barriers and cheats us, and they do so by the very rules of the World Trade Organization. So the court has taken a step which will break that promise as well. And what we see this is as this broader problem of rogue judges erecting essentially a judicial blockade, motivated both by Democrats and, in the case of trade, the typical rhino free trade Wall Street, ship the jobs offshore, open the borders, kind of wing. Let me just finish. There's plenty of time here. Plenty of time. So the open border wing of the Republican Party. And we see this as a judicial blockade. It's consistent with the other things they've done to try to stop the deportation of violent felons and to basically slow us down on all sorts of different fronts. And they will pay the price for this at the ballot box. Every time something like this happens, the Democrats reveal themselves as against the very agenda President Trump ran on that propelled him to a landslide election. And just from a detail that you should put on your stories, I mean, how did this suit come about? 12 states of this union sued, and every single one of them is a blue state, from the left coast of Oregon and Washington to New York and Connecticut on the elitist coast. And the other parties to the suit were a bunch of importers who buy a bunch of cheap subsidized crap from China that really is illegally traded, in the sense that it doesn't abide by the rules of the WTO. Now, with respect to the rulings themselves, let's think about this. There's a lot of texture here. It's unusual when you have a court come out with two very separate rulings where the law interpretation is very different and very, very textured. Okay, the common denominator is the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. It's an act which entitles the executive branch with very, very broad authority to take action in the face of economic emergencies. In the case of the fentanyl, there's an obvious one there. It's killing Americans, many of them of prime working age. And that fentanyl tariff also was designed to stop the border invasion. And when you have 20 million people coming in, stealing jobs, depressing wages, that's part of the emergency. And then the reciprocal tariff issue, the emergency there very clearly is the $1.3 trillion trade deficit a year, which cumulatively has added up to $18 trillion of wealth transferred into foreign hands. And can you imagine what you can buy with $18 trillion in this country? You could buy a whole state with that. So with respect to the fentanyl tariff, the court argued that somehow that there wasn't a sufficient connection between tariffs and the ability to stop the fentanyl poison. We just violently disagree with the court on that and see that as a violation of the separation of powers between the judicial branch and the executive branch itself. The court is not supposed to micromanage how the president of this United States is supposed to be able to get people to stop dying from fentanyl. And the court didn't even note the fact that the fentanyl tariffs have been actually quite successful so far in improving that situation. It's gotten a lot better, and the court didn't even acknowledge that. So that one's wrong on legal grounds. With respect to the reciprocal tariff argument, that was like a whole separate argument. They basically said that the president acted beyond the scope of his authority. And the buried lead in all of that was they said, well, this is why the stock market has basically not reacted to this, because the status quo is still in place. It's like you can use other things to accomplish the same result. We just don't like this one. You know, it's the 122, the 232, the 301, 338. Do your homework. You know how all that works. So where we stand right now is we have a dramatic expansion of a judicial blockade of the Trump agenda by rogue judiciary working in league with Democrats who are at the heart of the suit, and rhino Republicans who have a vested interest in shipping our jobs offshore and opening our borders. We will fight this all the way up the chain. And in the meantime, this did not catch us by surprise. You will hear within the next day or two, at a minimum, from the United States Trade Representative on how we will respond to all of this. We will respond forcefully, and we think we have a very good case with respect to this. Now, after having said that, I appreciate your patience. What I try to do when I come out here is give you more texture and background rather than just sound bites. So that's what I hope I've done. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Peter. And just given this appeals court temporarily reinstating the tariffs, what does that mean for you and your position? And does it buy the administration more time, in your view?
Me and my, you're not talking about me personally. You're talking about the administration.
Of course.
Yeah. So, look, the tariffs remain in place. The court told us, they didn't all but tell us, they told us, go do it another way. So you can assume that even if we lose, we will do it another way. And I can assure the American people that the Trump tariff agenda is alive, well, healthy, and will be implemented to protect you, to save your jobs and your factories, and to stop shipping foreign wealth, our wealth, into foreign hands.
So you are working on a plan B
Of course. Oh, there's no plan B. It's plan A. Okay? Plan A encompasses all strategic options, and when we move forward, we had a full view of what the battlefield looks like. We are not naive about rogue justices in the judiciary and Democrats filing lawsuits. This has got to stop, by the way. This weaponization of the judiciary to stop President Trump from doing what he promised the American people. This has got to stop. It's the people of America have the lowest level of confidence in the American judiciary they've had in 100 years. And it's getting close to what they think about Congress, and that's a low bar to hit.
How much of that is because
Okay.
every time you get a court decision you don't like, you and your colleagues come out here and rail against rogue judges?
Who is this guy?
judges.
Tell me who you are, sir.
I'm Andrew Feinberg. I work for the Independent. Sir.
Okay, so that is such a biased question. That is not a journalist question. That was like an op-ed, sir. So I don't even respond to that.